The Tennessee execution that sparked outrage. Byron Black's final moments. On a quiet August morning in Tennessee, a 69-year-old man lay strapped to a gurney. Inside Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, outside the prison gates, the world moved on, but inside, something was going terribly wrong. Byron Black was being put to death. But unlike any execution in modern American history, there was a problem. His implanted defibrillator, a device meant to save lives, had not been turned off. And when the lethal drugs began to flow, he cried out in pain. This is the chilling, controversial final chapter of Byron Black, a man convicted of unthinkable crimes, but whose execution has ignited a storm of ethical, medical, and legal controversy. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. The crime that started it all. It was April 1988 in Nashville, Tennessee. A woman and her 2 daughters were found murdered in their home, gunned down in what prosecutors called an act of jealous rage. Angela Clay, 29th. LaToya, 9th. Lakeisha, just 6 years old. The man behind the murders, Byron Black, Angela's boyfriend at the time. He had a violent past, already serving time for shooting Clay's estranged husband, yet was released on work detail. Prosecutors said it was that jealousy and bitterness that led him to commit one of the most brutal triple homicides in Nashville's recent history. A jury convicted Black, and he was sentenced to death. For decades, his name faded into the background. Another man on death row. But as his execution date approached in 2025, Byron Black's case became anything but ordinary. The clock ticks down. Byron Black was no longer the same man who walked into prison in 1988. At 69 years old, he was wheelchair-bound, battling dementia, kidney failure, congestive heart failure, and brain damage. But one detail would change everything. Inside Black's chest was a medical device, a battery-powered implant called an ICD, or implantable cardioverter defibrillator. Its job? To monitor and shock the heart back into rhythm if it sensed irregularities. But what happens when a man with such a device is executed by lethal injection? Would the device trigger? Would it cause pain? Would it interfere with the drugs? Nobody knew for sure, and that's exactly why his attorneys fought to stop the execution, unless that device was turned off. A legal tug of war. In mid-July, a trial court agreed, ordering that the ICD be deactivated prior to execution. The reasoning was simple: avoid unnecessary pain. But the Tennessee Supreme Court overturned that decision. Just days before the execution, they ruled the lower court had overstepped its authority. Byron Black would be executed, defibrillator still active. State attorneys claimed the device wouldn't fire, and even if it did, they said, Black wouldn't feel it. But what happened inside that execution chamber told a very different story. The execution. August 5th, 2025, 10:33 a.m. 7 media witnesses sat inside the viewing room. Byron Black, restrained on the gurney, looked around the room as the first dose of lethal pentobarbital was pushed into his IV. He lifted his head off the gurney, more than once. He sighed, he breathed heavily, and then he cried out, "Oh, it's hurting so bad," he said aloud, while a spiritual advisor prayed over him, singing softly, touching his face. Asked for last words, Black simply said, "No, sir." 10 minutes later, he was dead. Time of death, 10:43 a.m. The fallout begins. What should have been a silent passing, medically quick, legally clean, was anything but. Every one of the 7 witnesses agreed. Byron Black appeared to be in pain. According to his attorney, Kelly Henry, this wasn't just an anomaly. It was proof that something had gone terribly wrong. The fact that he was able to lift his head and speak during the injection means the pentobarbital didn't work the way it should have, she said. Now, Black's legal team is requesting full data from the defibrillator and medical devices to determine whether the implant fired, whether it shocked him during death. The nonprofit Death Penalty Information Center said it's unaware of any other cases with similar claims to Black's about ICDs or pacemakers. Black's attorneys said they haven't found a comparable case either. Ethical and legal questions. Black's case raises chilling ethical questions. Can a man be executed with a live medical device that might interfere with death? Should courts override medical concerns to keep an execution on schedule? The Death Penalty Information Center said it had never seen a case like this, and while Byron Black was no stranger to violence, advocates say the state violated constitutional protections by proceeding despite the risks. There's also the issue of intellectual disability. Black's legal team has long argued he suffered from mental impairment since childhood, and while a 2021 Tennessee law would have protected him, it came too late, and only because of timing, not evidence. The victims remembered. For some, Byron Black's death was justice, long delayed, but justice nonetheless. Angela Clay's sister, Lynette Bell, spoke through a victim's advocate. His family is now going through the same thing we went through 37 years ago. I can't say I'm sorry because we never got an apology. 3 lives lost in 1988, 1 life ended in 2025, and a nation divided on how it all unfolded. The bigger picture. Byron Black became the 28th person executed in the United States this year, the highest total since 2015. 9 more executions are scheduled before year's end. But as cases like Black's show, capital punishment is not just about guilt or innocence. It's about procedure, dignity, constitutionality, and in some cases, science. Was his death just? Was it humane? Or did the state, in the rush for finality, create something far more disturbing? Autopsy results and defibrillator data are still under review by Byron Black's legal team. What do you think? Was this execution justice, or did it cross a line?